Here is the visualization of what I have said yesterday. We have the connectivity jar, wherein the big players are represented by those big stones, but we cannot occupy all the spaces. So we need smaller particles like sand or soil in order for us to fill in the jar. So this is where, I'll just sit here. So this is where the past and present research efforts in the Philippines have been focused on inclusive access. So we have to include all. So at the fringes of connectivity, in my various years in the field, ingenuity abound. No, so people are erecting poles and repeaters in mountainous areas. Long-range Wi-Fi and piso Wi-Fi have proliferated everywhere. Piso Wi-Fi businesses proliferated during the surge of the pandemic as a response to the demand of internet access in underserved areas. So in one picture, there is the hotspot that is the only spot in Divilacan, Isabela where there is 3G access. So they literally build a hut and name it hotspot. There are videos in YouTube on how to create your own piso Wi-Fi sa bundok, and some commercially available brands as their preferred brand. No? And there's also a cell phone rest because there's just one spot wherein there is signal. No? So the point is that people are not waiting for those big companies or the telcos to provide them connectivity. They will provide solutions for themselves. So yesterday we discussed about community networks, but let us first define what they are. So it is an emerging bottom-up approach in connectivity. It is formed hopefully by local actors to bring communications access in unserved areas. So it should be run cooperatively, optimized for local needs, and leverages local resources. It provides local services, and it is aimed to be sustainable with community buy-in. So there are pictures of community networks set up in Aurora in the Philippines, and just to show you the pictures. So before we had community networks, there have been efforts to provide communications in unserved areas in the context of a disaster. So this is a previous project, Project Roger, wherein the proposed value is that at the aftermath of disaster, there will be no telco services. Then this system will be set up, pre-placed to provide 2G connectivity. And once the commercial telcos are able to restore their services, this system will be dismantled to be pre-placed in other disaster-prone areas. So after we developed this project, again, this is the setup in Camarines Norte. So there is an island. There are islands there that have no signal even before disasters. No, so we are able to report one typhoon of their situation. And they were able to integrate this system in their barangay DRRM plans. And we were able to use locally available resources such as bamboo poles with directional antennas, you can see in one of the pictures. Then after that project, we realized, what if we can build networks that are not only useful for disasters? What if we can build networks that will be used by the community? In Filipino, we call it pansamantagal. So it links us to the disaster DRR then. No? So these are the text messages that we receive from the community. We compile it in an Excel file wherein we would send them updates because they cannot receive MDRRMC updates in the normal fashion. So we would, once we receive the MDRRMC updates, we would forward it to them. So they would reply to us, and we will receive these replies via Excel, and they would say, Saan po magsisimula ang bagyo papunta rito? Maraming salamat po sa pag-alala. Thank you for the reminder or thank you for being there. And ano pong gagawin namin? Pupunta po kaming Dingalan ngayon. So they were asking for information that we provide. And one would say, salamat po sa pagvivigay ninyo ng mensahe tuwing may sakuna. Ayan po. And this is one of the pictures of a trauma case that they were able to help because of the communications that we have set up there. So the Kapinisan is a 4-hour boat ride to Baler, and they were able to respond to a trauma case because of the networks that you have set up there. So the point is, from DRR, we extended the services to provide communications regardless if it is a disaster or not. So here are the 7 community networks in Aurora. We have partnered with one of our telco friends to make this possible. All in all, we have powered 2,500 subscribers and provided mobile telephony from them since 2017. So in community networks, it is always good to rethink the model. For example, infrastructure. We are using cost-effective components and designed with the local context in mind, such as unstable source of power, etc. So as much as possible, we would like to use local resources in building the cell sites. And we are also rethinking the model in terms of operation. Conventionally, we tend to allow the engineers or the other technical people to run the network. But in the community networks that we set up, it is the community themselves or the local champions who are fixing or troubleshooting the network. But we aim to minimize the number of problems that they would have. In the picture, we had trained the local personnel on how to set up the antenna. And in one of the pictures in the middle, it is actually she is actually fixing a problem on the base station level. And this is a drawing of a power setup that was drawn by a high school student. That means he understands the power system layout of the system. So we are erasing this narrative that the people in the countryside are afraid of the technology. They are not. You just give them the proper training and they will be empowered to do all these things. So moving forward with the community networks, Project Rain in the UST ASTI is, we would like to think of it as a spiritual successor of what we did in the past few years. So we are shifting from 2G GSM to 4G LTE in other unexplored bands in the Philippines, like the 600 megahertz frequencies. And we also have cache content to optimize the bandwidth that we have, so that we can only use the bandwidth in critical situations. So we provide the content for them, for example, the videos, videos for livelihood, videos for the RR response, readily available for them. We cache them at a certain schedule in order for us to minimize the use of the bandwidth that is critical in these areas. And we also use data casting as a non-internet way of updating and providing content. Now we are partnering with DepEd with this because of the sudden shift from face-to-face to remote learning. But the same core technology can be applied to any sector that needs to be prioritized, for example, in DRR, in livelihood, in preserving the heritage of indigenous peoples, etc. So here are, in my experience as one of the helpers for the communities to build their own networks. Here are some points to consider in the local context for community networks. First is, and this is important, community buy-in. The free Wi-Fi programs and the community buy-in programs are complementary to each other. There are merits to have free Wi-Fi sites, and there are also merits for sites that has community buy-in. So the community buy-in should be sensitive to the community's capacity to pay. So that's why they are given the agency to decide on the rates that they would like to implement on their networks. And communities will take care of the network if they feel that they own the network, reaping its benefits while taking responsibilities for its operation. Number two, robust and cost-effective hardware and software systems. And this is where Open RAN shows promise. Na. So the third point is increased participation of government, especially in areas where the private sector cannot reach. No? So how can we participate more? Through policy reforms that will allow the government to perform quasi-telco functions such as importation of equipment and the use of frequencies within an operational framework, such as during disasters or in unserved areas. And lastly, zooming into the third point, policy reforms that will enable alternative and other bottom-up strategies to be sustainable and thrive with conventional players.